Hey y'all. So I wanted to share what I've learned about myself so far in my Lent fast. So I told y'all back at the beginning of Lent that I was going to give up control. And so many things have happened that are outside of my control that I have just had to sit and pray and process. And I'm just really grateful for God using this time to help me get through this. One, to help strengthen and deepen my faith and my relationship with Him. But two, so I could just show up as a better person. So, I think a few days after I said that I was going to give up control, God had one of the people I used to pray for, had her reach out to me, and she's in the same place that I was in about 7 or 8 months ago when I was dealing with the burnout. And so I'm grateful that God always uses the things that I've experienced. And that's something to point out. Like, God will use anything that you've gone through if you allow Him to be able to minister to someone else and to be a blessing to someone else. So I was able to talk to her and tell her like what I did and how I processed getting through burnout. Like, I spent one day uninterrupted praying, reading a word, getting a word from God, and just listening for a word from God about what strategy I needed to employ to get over burnout. And then in the course of the conversation, God really got to the root of both of our issues, and specifically for me, was fear. And it was in the midst of that conversation that God showed me that fear is often at the root of anything control related. For me, I know a lot of the fears that I had were rooted to traumas I experienced growing up and just as an adult. And if I'm honest, fear for a long time tried to cripple me and tried to keep me from fully walking out my purpose and potential. I had this like personality before I had my son, and then there was a personality after. And not saying that I wasn't the same person, but fear really began to cripple me after I had my son. And whereas in the beginning, before him, anytime I heard a word from God, I jumped feet first in. And that wasn't necessarily a problem. It was just that I didn't wait to hear and get additional instructions, which often led to me being hurt in the process, because God gave me the word on or the instruction on the thing to do, but He didn't say that it was for that set season and time. And the people, the places I was going to church and the people I was looking up to like as mentors, those weren't necessarily the people that I was supposed to be gleaning from. In fact, I experienced a lot of different forms of hurt, and if I'm honest with you, that's a lot of the reason why I haven't fully been walking out my calling. But I'm grateful that God chooses to allow me to minister in this way, as well as in intercessory prayer. So when I realized that fear was at the root of everything, like I circled back like immediately and set up a session with my therapist, because we had talked about going through a fear ladder. And the fear ladder activity was everything I needed it to be. And specifically, what you do is you identify the things that you're afraid of, and you write a long list, and you want to start at the bottom rung, like the bottom step of a ladder, and work your way to the top, to that thing that's that deepest, biggest fear. And then you actually confront the fear by saying, like, if this thing happened, what would I do? Like, how would you deal with say developing an illness, another illness, or in my case getting COVID again, and having to be isolated from practically everyone I love except for my son. And so that was a major shift for me, because it forced me to confront those things and identify like how would I respond, and like what would be my next step, like how would I pray, what would I do about this particular thing to overcome in this area. And so that was so helpful for me, because then when I ended up testing positive again for COVID, it forced me to put that immediately in action. Like, I had COVID, and then right before that, the week that I possibly the week I most likely got COVID, I had a doctor's appointment, a physical, and I had to get labs, and my labs took a crazy amount of time to come back. In fact, I didn't get my lab results until the day I tested positive for COVID, because I set up an appointment thinking maybe I had a sinus infection, and I ended up testing positive for COVID like right before the appointment. But I didn't get the lab results back until I talked to her, because something went wrong with their system and they didn't send them out automatically. And so I was forced to, like, you know, are my kidney labs off? Because that's something that I always am afraid of. Is my kidney function? Is my kidney still functioning properly? And so, you know, God gave me a lot of on-the-job training, so to speak, to be able to confront and deal with the fear and accept that these situations were out of my control. Like, I couldn't control when those labs came through. I couldn't control the fact of me catching COVID again. And there have been other things that I can't control, and there will always be things that are outside of our control. And I'm just really grateful, because for me now, I realize that I was putting all this responsibility and pressure on myself to have all the answers and be able to solve and fix all the problems, when that's not what God called or created me to do. And the problem is that anytime you allow fear to take control and to take precedent over anything that God is calling you to do, you run the risk of not living up to your full potential. And I don't want to live a life where I didn't check off everything I was supposed to do. And in the midst of this, God has dealt with me about so much and so many things that I know that I want to do and that I know God has told me to do. And I have the peace to go forward and move forward with those things. So that is, so far, we have about 25 days left till Easter. That is what I've learned so far in releasing and relinquishing control to God. And I'm just grateful, because things could be way worse. And I'm, again, grateful to be feeling better, and glad that God is just using what I'm experiencing to help me grow in my faith and in my relationship with Him. So I don't know if I'm gonna have another video, but I hope y'all are doing well, and I hope that this is a lesson for you to confront the fears. Do the fear ladder activity. That thing was top notch, #1 thing that I needed to do. And I hope y'all have a wonderful Thursday and a great weekend. Bye.